What is up, everybody? Severance Season 2, Episode 6 just released, so we are going to break it down. I just finished the episode, and let me tell you, this might have been one of my favorite episodes of the whole series so far. The episode starts off with Mark in the outie world having another reintegration process. Now, this time he is definitely seeing into Lumon, and he even sees Miss Casey, and he says that she doesn't even recognize him and that she's just reciting facts. We then get to see any Mark, and he's looking at the fridge inside of Lumon, and his fridge starts like morphing into the outside world fridge. He still looks pretty sick, and the effects of reintegration are definitely taking a toll on him. One thing that I definitely wasn't expecting from this episode was Dylan meeting up with his wife again. So they do both seem pretty happy, but you can definitely tell that his wife seems to be hiding something, and I don't know what that is yet, but she is definitely sus. She's a very sus character to me, and I don't know. I don't trust her at all right now. But Dylan does ask for another hug like they did in their last meeting, I guess, because he said he liked it last time, and she agrees. His wife agrees to hug him, but then she also kisses him, and Dylan is very happy right now. But what I think is one of the biggest moments of this episode is when Mark tells Helly what happened at the campsite with Helena. I was not expecting this to happen in this episode at all. I thought this was going to happen later on, but Mark tells her this, and obviously she does not take it well at first. Helly R goes out into the hallway and kind of gets into the fetal position to takes her shoes off and is crying. And I get it. You feel violated, and I feel like Mark kind of feels violated too, because he kind of got played basically. But then the crazy thing that happens is Helly R gets up. She says, "You know what? I'm not gonna let my outie control me. I'm gonna do this myself." So she goes over to Mark and says just that, and what do you know? They go in one of the office spaces, and she makes a 10 of her own. I was just sitting watching this, and I was like, first of all, there's a big window. You picked the one office space with a huge window in it with see-through tint material. I think she picked the worst place to do this, but it doesn't come to bite them in the butt. But I thought it was going to. I was actually nervous for both of them in this scene. I was actually scared that Milchick was going to come and see this, because if Milchick would have seen this, I think he would have freaked out. And luckily for them, no one saw this that we know of, and they just go back out to their workspace. But then Mark's nose starts to bleed, and Helly's like, "Oh, your nose is bleeding." And Mark's like, "Oh no." And you know who comes in to save the day? Yes, the little creepy girl, Miss Huang. I do not care how many times I see Miss Huang. Every time I see her, she is still going to be creepy to me. She has all this doctor gear on. How does she know how to do any of this? She's like 9. And then she starts kind of pressuring Mark about why is your nose bleeding? We keep all the floors on this even temperature, and he didn't really answer her, and I'm glad he didn't, because I think he kind of knows this might possibly be something with my outie going on. That's kind of what I thought, and I hope he does, but he didn't answer her, which I'm glad about. At this moment, Mark starts to trip out again. He starts seeing his outie world and stuff, and it flashes to his outie world, and he has all these wires connected to him, and he gets just fed up with everything that's going on. He takes all the wires off, and he's like, "You know, I don't want to do this anymore." And then we finally get to see Irving outside of Burt's house for the dinner party. I'm not even gonna lie here, this scene was pretty awkward between the three guys in this house at that moment, but we did get a scene where Burt was talking about how he originally went into the Severance program and why he did that in the first place. And he basically said that he started going to this Lutheran church, and one time somebody asked him if he's going to heaven, and he said, "Oh, I don't think I am, no." And then the church had a stance on the Severance program, and they said that their stance is that innies, they think, have their own souls. So basically, Burt thinks that he can go to heaven from this new soul if he gets that. So that was his reason of starting the Severance program. I thought that was a pretty interesting reason to join this program, but I'm not even going to lie. I don't even know if that was true about the whole church thing, because later on in the episode, he seemed very, very sus. A little part of me thinks he might be working with Lumon now at this point, just by the way he made it a point to say, oh, Lumon wasn't even like a thing 20 years ago, so I couldn't even work there. What? And then he gave Irving that ominous stare at the end of the episode. And then Mark, after taking all the wires off of his head and says he's done with the reintegration, he goes and eats at what I think was a Chinese restaurant. And guess who shows up in the exact same restaurant? You guessed it, Helena Egan. She literally comes down and sits at Mark's table and says, Mark? And he's like, yeah, I know you're Helena Egan. She's acting very weird, and she even like gets the name of his wife wrong, because she's like, I'm so sorry what happened with Hannah. And he's like, don't you mean Jenna? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. It is a very, very odd scene. She also like is kind of like flirting with him, and she asks Mark, like, not even asked, she's like, you should meet my dad, who is the head of the entire company. Like, trust me, Mark, you don't want to meet her dad. And I think Mark knows this. Like, he knows there's something like wrong with her. He can tell. Like, and that's why Mark literally gets up and like runs away and gets in his car and goes back to the reintegration thing. Mark gets back to the house and he's like, do it, put the reintegration thing. I don't even care anymore. I think he was just like so freaked out by this whole encounter that he just wants to like either know everything that's going on or just like forget about this entire thing. So he gets the longest needle that I've ever seen in my life stuck in his head. And I think they like they say they flood the pill, and I don't exactly know what that means yet, but that this does some crazy things to him in the moment. Mark starts having a freak out reaction to this. You start seeing scenes from his innie and outie life like combined together, and I'm not gonna lie, there are some very, very good camera work and sound design in this scene, but it is a crazy scene to watch. Finally, we get a knock at the door, and Mark is like, no, she knows my car is here. I gotta go up. Mark stands up and walks up, and it's his sister. I thought it was going to be Helena, but it's his sister, and she comes in, and Mark is like, no, I'm trying something else. Like, I just don't feel good. And Mark passes out. Mark passes out on the floor, and then the other girl runs up, and his sister's like, who are you? And she's like yelling. Like, this scene was hectic. And I already talked a little bit about how like Irving left Burt's house and how Burt was being like very weird. But that is how the episode ends. Episode 6 was another crazy episode to Severance. This show continually gets better and better every single episode, and I'm so excited for episode 7 next Thursday. And that is about it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like this video, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Let me know what you thought about this episode. Did you think this episode was good? Did you think it was terrible? If you thought this episode was terrible, I don't even know what to say, because this was amazing. But yeah, let me know that in the comments. Please subscribe, like this video, and I will see you next time.